sculpture is an art form.
It can touch the public in many ways.
I think they're all great works of art. They each have their own history, their own artist and concept behind them.
What is this person thinking when they made these things? What am I thinking when I look at it?
These sculptures do represent us and speak for us.
Sculpture is very much a part of who we are, our identity in Wellington. We are bringing in these artistic components to where we live and the way we want to do business.
The Sculpture Trust, it aims to provide the best quality contemporary New Zealand sculpture that it can through the city of Wellington. We locate them where they're easy to access and form sculpture walks. So we have the CBD cluster, the Wellington waterfront cluster, the group in the Botanic Gardens and the Meridian wind sculpture walk along the head of Evans Bay. I think if each one was a painting, they'd be in the permanent collection of Te Papa.
The 70s, 80s in Wellington. Wellington was a pretty bland city.
When I was a kid, there was just nothing in Wellington. We didn't even have trees down the main street. It was a grey, dull old city.
It's improved immeasurably, and one element of that, I think, has been the impact that the Sculpture Trust have had on our city.
Now we've got these sculptures out in public places that you walk past on a daily basis.
The Sculpture Trust started in the early mid-1980s when Henry Lang, Ian Pryor, and the mayor at the time decided to sponsor a sculpture by Tanya Ashkin, which is the albatross sculpture down by Frank Kitts Park.
Tanya Ashkin's Albatross, the very first one, set up as this real kind of challenge to the city and to the material drives. It was such a politicised work. Sculpture Trust developed on from that and insisted on the importance of culture and recreation in the city.
In 1990, there was a project called Art and Nature, and it commissioned or bought a series of sculptures to go in the Botanic Gardens. In 2000, the Trust resumed putting sculpture in the city area, and over that decade it put in about 11 sculptures. Also in that decade, the second shift was to start the Meridian wind sculptures on Cobham Drive at the head of Evans Bay. So that's where we're at present. That should add up to about 25 sculptures. Each sculpture is closely related to its own site. It's designed for a site and selected for a specific site.
It's being placed in the small malls and streets and so on around Wellington so that people can engage with it more closely.
Now you go and visit Te Papa as a special outing, whereas walking down Langton Quay, you do that on a daily basis and you have an appreciation of those sculptures.
And it's remarkable when you look back over these 25 sculptures how the city changes. It feels remapped or rearticulated. So I think sculpture played a really active role in shaping and reshaping the city over that period.
They have created this panoramic overlay part of the infrastructure of our city.
It's like an open-air art gallery now, a city of sculpture. And there's a collection of New Zealand's 25 finest sculptures on display.
And Wellington's got a fantastic natural environment with the circle of hills and the harbour.
The artwork sits well within Wellington because of our geography and urban design.
I think one of the great things about Wellington is its compactness, and so the accessibility of all the sculptures, I think, is a real plus.
People walking around the city can either view or interact quite closely with some of these pieces.
You only need to go driving from the airport and right in your face, you've got all these great sculptures.
The main road going out to the airport, they can see these larger works moving in the wind.
With the wind sculptures, we've made use of Wellington's wind and turned that into a positive.
One of the least endearing traits of Wellington is its wind, and the fact that the Sculpture Trust has been able to utilise the wind to make things spin, bend or sway, I think is fantastic.
The grasses might be blowing over or they might be just static. Because it is one of the windiest stretches. It's an introduction to people to Wellington. So I think it's just great that it's being embraced with sculpture.
So you've got the particular dynamics of Wellington here, and the Sculpture Trust has tapped into that. Wind is one of them, but the waterfront walk as well. We're a harbour capital.
To make all the sculpture happen, you need a lot of players and big networks.
Collaboration is the essence of what the Trust does. They need to be able to bring in all the elements, integrate the artist into the process.
And around them, there's a supporting cast of engineers and fabricators. Then, of course, there's donors. We've been very lucky with some very generous Wellington benefactors. And then there's the other trustees, there's our Arts Advisory Panel, there's the City Council. It couldn't have happened without such a positive approach from the council. The city's contribution on average is to about 20% of the funding of it, and the other 80% is raised from private donors and commercial businesses and people like that. It's an integral part of our process that we donate the sculpture to the city and it becomes a city asset and the city owns all of them. And that for us is a wonderful arrangement because the city assumes the responsibility for maintaining them.
You get art that the public can enjoy because they pay for it through their rates or their rent, and artists are pleased to not only get paid, but their work is up getting shown to a massive audience. It's for public spaces.
Wellingtonians on the whole are a fairly art-savvy sort of a public, and they are tolerant of some quite advanced, experimental, contemporary art.
People will get and not get of sculpture. It's not really up to the Sculpture Trust to define what that getting element should be. It's simply to place it in view of people, not an elite group of people, and that's the beauty of what the Sculpture Trust do.
The Trust's feedback from Wellingtonians on the street is usually and almost universally very positive. They will make statements about the sculpture that go beyond what the Trust itself would ever claim for them, that they sort of make the city or they make people feel we live in a cosmopolitan international city. The nearest thing to a negative or cautious response we get is, I don't understand that work, but I still actually appreciate that it's there because I know other people like it, and it's good to see artworks like that in Wellington, even if it's not for me.
Art can be this thing that may well confound or conflict or do a whole host of things, but it does change things. And obviously a key difference from an older idea of sculpture, kind of marking or memorialising. The idea of sculpture being something that activates is something which I think anyone can respond to no matter how much you think you might like or dislike art.
I've had arguments with my friends about some of it. Some of my friends have been puzzled by it. I don't attempt to impose my view on them, but what I do is say, well, have a think about it. Go and have another walk around. I'll go and have a cup of coffee and come tell me what you think. And I think there's a lot of that goes on in our city to do with sculpture.
We will probably look more and more at temporary sculptures. We started down that track with the selection of the 4 big plinths that straddle the waterfront between Te Papa and Circa Theatre. The current sculpture that's on it is the 3rd in that series. We're rotating them every 2 years.
So it means that we're never putting a full stop on things. That's the key thing, which again, as any active contemporary city would like to feel. Things are always in movement, things are always in motion, and public art should be part of that flow. For our art to be meaningful, it does need to be more responsive to things. So we can make art that speaks to lived experience right here, right now.
Wouldn't it be great to see an ephemeral work fall apart in the wind? And there's a risk in doing something like that. But that's what art is all about, is making people think and feel and question and be challenged.
I think that some of the things that temporary works can do is that they create scenarios that you fleetingly engage with. You have a memory of that scenario in the place it was and it's now gone again. And so it exists in the imaginary.
But I would be sure there will be always an enduring base of Sculpture Trust work that relates to lasting and permanent sculptures.
The artwork in Wellington has made us quite unique in New Zealand, just for the sheer numbers and their placement and the unique contemporary personality to those pieces.
The intention is that the city overall benefits most and that its reputation as an arts capital, a creative city, is reinforced. It has a tourism and visitor industry benefit, as well as making art readily accessible to Wellingtonians.
Sculpture has come to represent Wellington and the ideals of Wellington around culture, around urban life.
I know that other cities have approached the Sculpture Trust to ask about the model and how it's worked because they've seen it to be so effective.
So there's a lot of people wanting to, if you like, imitate us, and it's good.
Public art is part of the thing cities need to do to show that they're in a creative mode and to attract creative people to come and live for lifestyle reasons and attract the sort of high-tech businesses those cities want.
So sculpture has played a significant part in the arts development of our city. There's no question about it, and may it continue to do so.
I think Wellington's really, really lucky to have this energetic group that's giving us these fantastic experiences.
The most important thing is that we continue to develop a collection in different parts of the city that represents the very best that New Zealand's top sculptors and artists can provide.
The ongoing outreach and education of the public around art is a really important role.
I'd wish for more antagonism and provocations around the notion of public sculpture.
I'd like to see a bit of risk-taking.
Also enabling new and emergent artists to have their work commissioned.
I think there's a lot that we could be doing in terms of mentoring between more established artists and those artists coming up. The smaller projects, the temporary projects, that's a way to get that kind of work visible.
Getting art out of the CBD and out into the suburbs, because many of the people who are citizens who live out of the central city, they come and enjoy that stuff. Why shouldn't they see that in their own environment?
It will just continue to enhance the cityscape, resident satisfaction, Wellington's reputation.
Every piece of sculpture is part of a city environment, which is there to inspire and excite and give pleasure.